All right. Call this meeting to order. It's Wednesday, June 24th, 2026. It's 9 a.m. We're in the Mounds View City Hall Council Chambers for the purpose of the Rice Creek Watershed regular board meeting. Let the record reflect that all managers are present along with our excellent staff. And first item on the agenda is the open mic. Any Rice Creek Watershed District resident may address the board in his or her individual capacity for up to 3 minutes on any matter not on the agenda. Speakers are requested to come to the podium, state their name and the address for the record. Additional comments may be solicited except in writing. Generally, the Board of Managers will not take official action on items discussed at this time, but may refer the matter to staff for a future report or direct that the matter be scheduled on an upcoming agenda. I may reflect that we have 4 people in the audience who I happen to know are all here because of item 26-001, which is on our permit application, and at the appropriate time, I'll let you provide us with comments with regard to that. So is there anyone else here that wants to speak about something that's not on our agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to setting the agenda. Can I have a motion? Or first of all,
staff have no proposed changes. President Bradley.
Proposed changes by anyone else? We have a motion to set the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Approval of minutes.
So, yes, so I would move to approve the minutes of the June 8th, 2026 workshop and the June 10th, 2026 regular meeting as presented in our packet.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. So Patrick, item number 1 on your agenda, please.
Yes, good morning, President Bradley, Board of Managers. For the consent agenda, we do have 4 applications for your consideration. As you noted, the first application, 26001, is for the Harvest Grange development. We do have the developer, the engineer, and neighbors here for this item. Certainly, if they'd like to speak, as you mentioned, I would just point out that this application for this development did come through to the board previously at the February 25th board meeting and was conditionally approved. This is coming back to the board. An additional parcel, a small piece of development was added to it since that time, and that's why it's here today.
So what is the status of this project and what specifically are they asking for at this time?
Yeah, the project has not started. They were in the conditional approval phase, coming back for the amended CAPROC. So it's the northeast corner of the development. There is additional land being added into there, some additional housing and a turn lane. That is what is the amendment.
Is there any construction begun at this time?
As far as I'm aware, no. I don't think there should be, no.
If you get up to 3 minutes if you want to make comments to us.
Hi, Linda Broussard Vickers, 6756 Centerville Road. This is my husband, David. We live on the farm. We own the farm that is the western border of this project. And our specific concern is in the southwest part of the project. You have in your packet this photo, and the specific area is down here. There is currently a wetland that is on this project and comes on to our property as well. And then right next to that, they plan on putting in a large holding basin. So as your findings in your packet say that the water is going to flow to these areas and then it will overflow into a private ditch, that is our private ditch on our land. That same private ditch was used 6 years ago to take the water flow from a project that is directly south of this project. It is a field ditch that was dug specifically to get the water from that field to the main drainage ditch, which used to be, of course, called a county ditch. It's not that anymore since we pay to have it cleaned, but our concern is that with this design, we will get a lot of erosion. The land directly next to this wetland is highly erodible ground. It is peat ground. And so overflow is going to cause an issue. Any erosion is then going to impact the ditch that we have to pay to maintain. So one of the things we noted in the design is that the elevation of the northern edge of the basin is going to be at 898, which is the same elevation as the wetland right now. The west and south borders of that basin are going to be at 904 and 902. So the basin will not have to fill completely. It will only have to fill to 908, and then it will start spilling into the wetland, which then will flow across the ground. So we learned about this on Thursday when a friend gave us this. We didn't, so we left messages here with the developers. We did meet with the developer and the engineer yesterday at our home, and we expressed our concerns. And so we just felt like this was an appropriate place and the next step to come and say, we still have concerns. You have all the engineering, they have the engineering. We have the knowledge of the land and our experience. And our concern is that everybody else is standing to profit from this project. We don't have a problem with it. It's okay. We knew things were coming. What our concern is our cost in the next few years as to what this erosion will do on our property. And we feel that that is likely, even though engineering says that it's not going to be any worse than what it is currently. So that's our primary concern, is the erosion over that peak ground that will then impact our ditch, which we will have to pay for, but it'll also impact the flowage from the project south as well as the one that's being built.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
Mr. President, I was a couple years ago with manager Wagaman. We were out there to look at a beaver dam down on very farther northern edge of this. If you were to look at your map, this is Old Ditch 47. And at that time, the renter for this property, you rent your farm property out, happened to be Don Stanky. I've known Don since I was in grade school. He's also a former member of this board. So he sees me in the field and he comes over there and he says, "Come over here and look at my tractor." I said, "Well, it looks like it's stuck." He says, "Yeah." He says, and he's talking about the development that's on the map on page 24 here. It's just below the yellow outline. He says, "Ever since they put that in, they changed the way the water flows and I get stuck out here in the field." He says, "Why did the Rice Creek Watershed do that?" So I said, "Well, I don't know, Don. I can't explain that to you. But I do know from my own personal experience at home on our farm, that when a development goes in next door on 120 acres across the street from us, and they change those ponds and create ponds, a depth in them, it changes how the water flows, and we ended up with, as I've told this story many times, about the bullheads in the cornfield. And taking a pond in which I could wade through it when I was 10 years old, it would be at the very best a type 3 or a 2, and change it into something that's more pleasant to look at for if you're developing things. So as I understand it, what you're telling me, Miss, is that you didn't sign a flowage easement yet, and that this is going to be one miserable nuisance. Because that's exactly what...
That is our belief. That's not what the engineers are saying.
Well,
but
I understand what the engineers
yeah,
are.
that is what we fear.
I've had the engineers tell me a lot. So
Yeah, so it's just, we just don't want to have to absorb that cost. That feels
And you're not the
unfair.
first ones that have come in and complained about this. We can go in the records and look at my father from the 1970s, so. Which the solution for the district was there for him to use his own money and create a swale system through the field, so to provide the drainage for the people across the road. And eventually, sometimes along the line, I reckon your property is going to change hands and change use and
Someday.
Someday. And at that time, then you're going to have this flowing through there. So that's kind of what I understand what you're saying.
Do you have any suggestions, John?
Well, I would think that that's something for them to work out. I think we're being told about a problem that exists here, and you know what happens when we have like Miss Catherine comes to talk to us continuously about over in Lino Lakes, and this is another deal here. This yellow square is in Lino Lakes, isn't that right? And
Our farm is in
It's in
Centerville.
Centerville.
We're the border, yeah.
yeah, and so we're using an old system that existed for because when this system was built, Lino Lakes didn't exist. It was Centerville Township, and so I mean, you're changing use of the land, and it's a problem. Now the engineers will tell you there isn't any problem there, but I know what the engineers tell me and what my lion eyes tell me.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have a question. I just want to be sure, typically we address the consent agenda as a whole. We've just picked this item, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, was there a motion on the floor so we can continue ongoing discussion, or did you just open it up for comments?
Well, we've got comments from them. This is comments from the land developer. So let's finish this one off. Let's get this one done.
I understand, I just was asking if there was a motion on the
No.
table to facilitate
There's no-
dialogue.
No, but go ahead and make one.
Well,
Mr. President, I'll move that the consent agenda for items, I'll move to pull 26001 off the consent agenda for discussion.
I'll second that. All in favor of removing this item off the consent agenda?
aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It has been removed.
Okay,
So we're no longer on the consent agenda.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
So I do have a question, if I
Yes,
might.
please.
Patrick, is
Yeah.
there an alternative to mitigating what is more than likely going to be a flooding issue? Now, what I hear is that you're not opposing the development, you're not opposing the land use change or any of that.
No.
What you're worried about is just holding
That
water on your
particular
property
piece
and
of ground
having to
that
clean that
is
ditch.
going to erode when water flows across.
So what can we do now before a problem becomes a problem to mitigate that? Now, I understand engineering has an opinion, and that's okay. You have real life, everyday experience, and that's okay too. Is there something that we can put in here that would help address what the longstanding issue would be, in addition to dollars having to be spent to clean the ditch out, right? Your private ditch,
Well, we
right?
need to maintain it. That's our responsibility. So we've done that for the last 40 years that we've been on the farm, and it's been tens of thousands of dollars
I
to
can
accomplish
imagine. I can imagine.
those clean outs. So-
Yeah, because what I don't want to do is greenlight a permit, knowing that there's an issue. If we can address it now, that'd be really great. So looking to you
Yeah.
for some King Solomon wisdom here.
So my initial thought is no. The way that I'm just seeing it, so we do have an application in here. The work is not proposed on their property, none of the grading or anything. The development meets the rules, the way that we have reviewed it. The rates in the 2-year, 10-year, and 100-year event that does flow to their property to the west is reduced in each of those scenarios from the existing condition. Erosion, that occurs during the development phase, that is something that we inspect for. We want to be attentive to that, and we work with the developer to make sure that those corrections are made if any are needed. The piece in the southwest corner that they reference, it is a borrow pond. It is intended to also provide some rate control from, water that is going to the west. So from my opinion of it, not a land use authority at the district, we've got the development, we have to review it against our rules. If it meets the rules, that's, the extent of what we can provide. Acknowledging your concerns, of course, but yes.
And I understand everything.
Yes.
I've been on your side of things on different occasions,
Sure.
so I understand your thought process. This was our only opportunity to say
Of course.
something officially, so to speak.
Mr. President, so if I look at this map on 24, and we take a look at the yellow square, you'll see that there's a flowage there that goes from the southeast corner all there towards the north, and you see that little yellow line that goes out to the mainstream of the ditch. So there's a waterway that way. That's one thing. maybe you can increase the flowage or channel it that way. And the second thing is you could just put a berm along the western edge of the property there, to protect it from flowing over. They have that gray spot there. It's in between the two red lines. You have a gray spot at the very top of it. I'm assuming the gray spot is talking about it being where the borrow pit is in the lower lands or wetlands, isn't it, Patrick? So you could put a berm alongside there that would channel that water.
President Bradley,
Yes.
just to clarify, the gray areas on page 24 of the packet, I believe that's NWI, National Wetland Inventory Mapping. Would that be accurate? Patrick?
Oh, apologies, I'm trying to
I'm
bring
sorry,
it up onto
page
the screens here so everyone can
24.
see.
Or Chris, if you could just answer that simple question
Yeah, that'd be my understanding that that would be
of the image.
wetland. And so placing a berm within the wetland would be subject to the Wetland Conservation Act, which would change the design and potentially change how the viability of the project. So,
President Bradley?
Yes.
And then if I could draw attention to page 21 of the packet and Patrick's comments, I believe there's the table near the top of the page. This is what Patrick was referring to, the runoff rates, the cubic feet per second, and the reductions that exist. So Patrick, the top of the page west, here's where you're saying between the existing condition, the rate at which water flows, and the use of the pond, the rate is reduced. And then to the board generally, this is a common, problem that unless the volume, the amount of water can be reduced in some way, we're maintaining rate, which is great. And here it's even a significant drop, I would say, in the 2-year and the 10-year. Well, all of them, 2, 10, and 100-year reduced significantly, but the volume will continue to move across property, which is what these good folks are referring to. I'm not saying that any of that is a solution. It's acknowledgement of the facts, and this is often perplexed development versus the engineering, and then further, and maybe I'll refer to Chris, there isn't really a way to dispense with that volume. And so to say that it's prohibited, that the district would write a rule that would prohibit the volume to move across the property results in effectively as a moratorium on development, which is obviously what our communities are trying to do, or individual landowners with their property. Chris, if I could, President Bradley, Chris, maybe you have more to add to that.
yeah, Mr. President, if I may, just to piggyback on what Patrick was saying, I think one thing that may be helpful in this case is providing dialogue to the district inspector about this specific concern on this place. So when they do go out and inspect during the project, that they may be taking careful note of what the conditions are as this is being built out, and seeing is there any visible risk of erosion that is occurring during the project being constructed, and then we can react to that at that time.
I think that's
So-
an excellent suggestion.
Mr. President, to use the next page over after the 25, I reckon it is, the borrow pit is down in the left-hand corner from what I see, or where that is, and the arrow shows the water definitely going west over the property line from that borrow pit that becomes, of course, a pond. And that's not in the wetland area. I wanted to look at the two maps because the wetland area is here, and we're talking about this area right in here. So I would suggest that maybe that, like I say, that this has a flowage. It's going to go into that drainage ditch that's alongside there. And so, that's...
Manager Waller, if I could, the figure in the packet, it is intended to be somewhat of a simplified image to broadly show how things are draining, I do have the drainage map from the actual application. It does show the wetland north of the Barrow Pond. It shows that would be, it is designed for rate control. So for those, it is a Barrow Pond. It is designed for rate control, but the emergency overflow, I believe, is, yes, to the north to the wetland, and then the wetland is shared onto their property as well. So a slightly different image than what is in the packet, I suppose.
But the Barrow Pond's not in the wetland.
Correct. It is not.
So the berm wouldn't be in the wetland if it were the Barrow Pond had a berm on it, then would it?
How different? Go ahead.
Yeah, and Mr. President, the design that they have does provide a barrier between the pond and the adjoining property, and that's why we have that emergency or they have the emergency overflow on their plan directing to the north there. So the first location of flow will be to the north and not to the west onto the neighboring property.
Going to the north will end up on the west.
Eventually, as it does currently,
Yeah,
as it currently flows, yep.
which is where the most susceptible ground is.
So at this point, I'd like to give a opportunity to the developer if he wants to add anything for us. Introduce yourself.
Good morning, Christine Cook with Twin Cities Land Development. I'm the development manager. I also have Justin Olson here from Carlson Engineering. He can answer any technical questions. We have met with the Vickers. We met with them yesterday. Brian Kostoviak actually met with them and myself. We pretty much kind of went over just how the site is going to flow, and Justin can answer that information. What we were kind of proposing with the Vickers, and we talked this morning as well, is that probably in the initial stage, before we do any construction out there, we'd like to meet as a group out there, inspect the ditch, take photos, document, see where it's at, the condition at that time, continue to document throughout the construction stage, and then also document once we stabilize, also once we get vegetation established, just to make sure we do not cause any adverse impacts. Again, our understanding, from our calculations is that we're not adding any additional flow, we're actually reducing it. I know one thing that we talked with Linda today, and I know Patrick, I left you a voicemail. We thought maybe potentially to give them a little bit peace of mind, do we potentially post like an escrow that there's something in place that, should any impacts happen, there is that escrow there that maybe goes with the life of the project that, could be either released to them if something should happen, or it's released back to us. So that's kind of where we're at today, this morning, with our conversations with the Vickers. I know I left you a voicemail. We haven't figured out those details, but we're in talks.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I actually appreciate your comment. I actually kind of whispered that to my colleague here, because what I don't want to do is I don't want to be reactive. Because 9 times out of 10, when we have these development projects, and especially areas that are or currently or previously were farmland, and you're adding massive density to very, very low density properties, we see this happen quite a bit. And so this is actually something that I kind of whispered to her, like, could we? Because I want you to have peace of mind too. You're not against the development. I appreciate, because this doesn't happen often in the development world, where there is very clear communication and a willingness to kind of bring that good neighbor mentality to what you're trying to accomplish. So I appreciate that there's been conversation. I would be certainly open to what you're dialoguing. I would just want to see it memorialized in some way, in some sort of formal documentation that, yes, throughout the process, staging, pre-construction, we're going to be managing or keeping an eye on the ditch when vegetation goes in, that we're monitoring and making sure water isn't going where it shouldn't be. And then, just kind of memorializing in some way that, if there's a escrow account or a surety set up on the side as a DEFCON 1 option, because I don't want that for you, because as much as we love having people come into our meetings, I certainly don't like when they come in because they have flooding or standing water issues on their property. So I think there is a way that we can move forward as long as there is agreement on all party sides, and we can memorialize it in some way. I would not have an issue with that, because that sounds like that component is kind of outside the purview of the watershed, quite frankly. But I would really only vote to move this forward knowing that all parties are satisfied, because I don't want to, you know, I don't want to be the troublemaker of this situation.
So I see Patrick nodding his head yes, that this seems to be something we can work with.
President Bradley?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt
No, go for
the
it.
dialogue there. I appreciate Manager Robertson's acknowledgement of what's being suggested by the developer, and that the landowners appear to have some satisfaction or interest in moving forward in that regard. The district, if it would like, you could include a conditional item within your permit. So on page 19 of your packet is a iteration of the various conditional items pending receipt of changes, as we call them, CAPROC. But you could potentially add an item 11 where the district would be the, I'll say, holder or the facilitator of holder is probably a better word, of this surety, but leave these parties to define those terms and such. Because I don't think we want to become
Right?
overly involved in that
Yep, I agree.
aspect of it.
And I almost wonder if it's not something administratively that's better done by the city, because they would put that in their conditional use
Yeah.
permit. I could be wrong, but I mean, this seems to be.
It's two municipalities, it's right on
Oh,
the
you're right, it
border.
is.
Yeah, so
It's a little tricky.
there's jurisdiction on one.
Got it.
Yeah, so it might, for those reasons, maybe it's best to reside, but I do acknowledge that's certainly a potential item. We could, yeah.
Mr. Chair, I'd hesitate to have the district be the banker with this particular piece. I mean, I think this is either, we see an agreement between the developer and the landowner, and we see that
And approve it based on that.
and approve it based on us, then us commingling those kind of funds.
Yeah.
So,
President Bradley, Manager Wynand, exactly the point, that the district just, we acknowledge that this is something that those parties would ask that is a requirement of the development. They seem in agreement, but we're just recognizing it. We are not an obligant of it. Right.
so let me understand this. Manager Marcy, you don't object to them having an assurity fund. You think that's a fair idea. I
Right.
think everybody does.
Right.
I agree with you, the district shouldn't be the banker.
Yeah.
But that doesn't, I think what the administrator is trying to say, if I understand him correctly, is that we're going to put an item 11 in here that says they'll bring proof that the assurity exists with another third party over this particular item. And they'll have to work out the language themselves and the length of the assurity or whatever it is, because it could be several years before you, depending on how much rain falls, that's got a big deal with it. So anyways, that.
initially, we should be at
would-
build-out,
would-
probably.
Would the parties that are in front of us today be agreeable to that kind of an item as the administrator described?
Are you looking for us to maybe draft some type of agreement with our attorney to send over to you guys for their consideration?
That might,
Work well.
President Bradley, yeah, that would be between you two as parties as to what that language would be. And the guidance to the board should really involve your attorney as to that you're not jeopardizing the district in inserting itself.
If I may, Mr. President. So I hear the Vickers expressing two concerns. One concern is erosion that would discharge sediment onto their property and into the ditch in particular. And the second is regarding a volume of water and the limited capacity in the existing ditches. So internally to the district, we can address the erosion and the sediment part by ensuring that all of our sediment and erosion control requirements are in place and maintained during the ongoing construction, and that's inspected at a specific point. We could even look at additional BMPs down in that area in terms of the erosion, and then also to stabilize, just obviously stabilize all the outfalls. external to what we can do, because we don't say, this is how you can use your land. We say, this is, if you're going to use your land in this way, this is what you have to do to be in compliance with our performance standards in order to manage the water. But a few things to consider. Post-construction, or even during construction, the developer could enter an agreement with the landowner that to either provide the capital to do so or to do it themselves to maintain that ditch. So immediately after the thing is constructed and everything's stabilized and final, it would be nice that those ditches, anything that did enter that ditch, was cleaned out. I mean, that's one of the components that could end up in that agreement. And then the second thing that I would just caution is, if you're going to draft an agreement between the two parties, you want to be very clear on what are the conditions that then require an action. So if it's just water coming on to you, Mr. and Mrs. Vickers, I mean, you have that now, right? And I think you're accepting of that, and I respect the fact that you can acknowledge, no, this is the reality. So water's going to continue to come your way. We just don't want this change to create a hardship for you. I don't think the developer wants this change to create a hardship for you. But I think that's probably the key component in any agreement you enter is what is the condition that causes you to have to act? Is it a certain degree of sedimentation? Is it, what is it? So good luck with that. That's going to be probably the most challenging part. I agree, we could actually be the escrow agent on this, but then we have a whole bunch of other concerns about when are we going to release funds and how do we release funds. So it's probably better, as Manager Wynant points out, to have that be between the parties. But in terms of what's been discussed today, Patrick's been absolutely correct in terms of what we can do within our permitting requirements. And I think the landowners and the developer have already started a good dialogue, so I would just encourage that continue. And just understand that any condition you do put in here, if you put a number 11 on there, it's questionable as to how you're going to be able to enforce that, obviously, because it's really a private issue between the two landowners.
So based on John's, and I think it's a correct analysis, we don't need a number 11. We can leave these parties to continue to work it out. If it doesn't get worked out, of course, they can come back and tell us it didn't. And that there's nothing to amend and no reason not to approve the application currently before us, because we will, of course, direct our staff to do their jobs, and that part of doing their jobs will making sure that during the construction period you have not lost a couple of protective logs that allows a lot of silt to run into that ditch. So.
Can I add one more thing,
Yes,
Mr.
please.
President? I'm fairly confident that this developer is going to end up in front of this board again. So I think it's in their interest to try to get this worked out in a favorable way, so that the next time they're in front of us, we're not sucking lemons. So.
Oh, gosh.
So with that, I would move.
Well, there's a motion on the table currently, but I do have one
Okay,
quick question. I do think, can we add a condition that just acknowledges something was dialogued here and that there is an agreement outside the enforcement of the watershed that is going to exist between the adjoining property owner and the development team? Because I just want to be sure that we're acknowledging it. Sure, it's a public meeting, the minutes last forever, but is there just a high-level condition that we can put in there acknowledging that there is work being done to address, potential issues down the road outside of the watershed?
Mr. President, Commissioner Robertson, I don't think it can be a condition, but I think certainly a comment in the permit itself that addresses and acknowledges the concerns that have been expressed by the Vickers specifically and the representations made today by the developer is perfectly appropriate. But as a condition, we can't enforce it anyway.
Nope, I understand. So is that amendment to the language within the permit, is that something that needs to be done formally here, or can we just ask Patrick and the staff to ensure that that gets added? Because obviously that's not in the permit that we're approving right now.
Because it's not a specific application of your rules, I don't think it requires a specific action by the board, but direction by the board to Patrick to put some kind of comment in the permit itself that acknowledges what's been discussed today, I think is perfectly appropriate.
Okay, if that in fact is the case, then I have no problem moving this forward. I just wanted to make sure that there were some protections in place for the adjoining property owners.
And just a matter of clarification, the motion was just to pull this permit from the
Correct.
consent agenda, so we have nothing
Yep.
to approve anything else on the consent agenda at this time.
So with that,
President Bradley, I'll just say, based on the discussion that Patrick, acknowledging this might be best under the description,
I agree.
because the rest are specific to Rice Creek rules and the, the obligations of them. So he could make note of the interest to see the document or what have you.
Yep,
So-
I agree.
So, Mr. President, I made the motion to pull this for discussion, and I'll make the motion to add to the findings under description some language that describes the developer and the
Neighboring land.
neighboring landowner be added to our findings description about that, that they're going to work this out. And then, so I would move that we accept this permit. Do you want it separately, or do you want it with the whole kit and caboodle today?
Well, we pulled it off.
We pulled it off, so we'll just,
Separate.
so that means, yes, so to approve permit with the addition, cap rock, yeah, I meant this, sorry, an additional cap rock
no additional language in
in the findings, yeah. So for permit 26-001.
and I'll second that. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I'd like to thank both parties for coming before us today and showing their willingness to work. Good work. Hopefully resolve this problem.
Mr. President, I'll move the cap rock, the 26043, 26045, 26049 to approve on the consent agenda as outlined in the table of contents in accordance with the Rice Creek Watershed District's engineers' findings and recommendations dated June 16th, 2026.
Is there a second?
This is Janet, I second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There you go.
President Bradley.
Yes.
Board of Managers, next on your agenda is item 1 requiring board action. That's the Milk County Ditch 5362, branches 5 and 6 repair project partial payment request number 2. That's on page 45 of your packet, and Tom is here to support the board moving through it.
Yes. Mr. President, Board of Managers, the contractor, Apex Drainage, that did the work for ECD 5362 Branch 5 and 6 repair have submitted a second pay request, which is in the packet for your consideration. The engineer has reviewed the request and has provided a recommendation, which is also in your packet. Staff have reviewed the memorandum or the memo of recommendation and concur with the engineer that a payment is appropriate.
Any questions to Tom?
Not a question, Mr. Chair, just a comment, since this corridor is frequently traveled by anyone that lives over in this area, just that the project itself, they did a very, very good job. Even from the jump, we had a lot of engagement from residents going, what the heck is going on here? What are they doing? What's happening? So just compliments to the contractor. I mean, again, we don't get very many comments from the general public about ditch cleaning. Because this is such a prominent corridor, there was a lot of attention to it, so they did a very good job. It looks good.
Super. So a motion then?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve the Apex Drainage LLC partial pay request as submitted and certified by the district engineer and direct staff to issue payment of $30,151.20. And that's what I got.
And this is Janet, I second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Nice to hear those comments. Thank you.
It's nice to be able to give them every once in a while.
So we had check register?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the check register dated June 24th, 2026 in the amount of $8,600 or $862,723.74 in the June interim financial statement prepared by Redpath and Company. And I would point out in the accompanying information that the large amount of $557,681.70 was approved at our last board meeting. And this was for the Centerville Lake project, and this was out of clean water funds.
Any questions?
Second. I'll second her motion.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? I guess we're up to staff reports.
That's correct, President Bradley.
Any comments on the staff reports?
Mr. Chair, I just point out on that first one by Sarah Belden, there are monthly meetings that occur regarding Jones Lake RCD 2, 3, and 5 project with all the local units of government that are involved in that project.
July calendar, anything of note? No Citizens Advisory Committee?
Yep, no Citizen Advisory Committee, Board of Managers.
Happy 250th birthday.
Yes, indeed. Yahoo! Yeah. And we have a board meeting and a workshop on Monday the 6th and Wednesday the 8th. All right. And administrative updates.
Yes, President Bradley, Board of Managers, just a couple of items. The Minnesota Plumbing Board met yesterday. This was the entity who had some draft language which would prohibit stormwater reuse. As you know, that's a strong element of the district's watershed management plan to utilize stormwater reuse, to reduce volume, some of the things that the most recent permit was dealing with. I did go to that meeting. I've spoke in favor of continuing with stormwater reuse and that they collaborate with the other entities, agencies that currently regulate and give guidance on that. The Plumbing Board did pause that rulemaking of Chapter 15 changes. And I think Minnesota Watersheds will be setting out an update, so you'll see that from Jan. I note Kendra's email on ADA compliance and that we're moving along there. I do have a number of 2-foot by 2-foot maps if you have of the district, if you're interested in having one of those. And I have hired a new project manager, Jen Onek. She will start on the 29th, Monday.
You say your name again?
Jen Oknick, O-K-N-I-C-K.
And can you tell us a little bit about her background?
Sure. She has been in the surface water industry, if you will, for a good number of years, 20 plus. She has associated herself with and well equipped with knowledge of the procedures through Bowser, Wetland Conservation Act. She did some work with mining up in the northern regions of the state. I'll have her come in and introduce herself to the board at the appropriate time.
Good. And Mr. Chair, Nick, Plumbing Board, how many people were in the room, and how did, I'm sure the Plumbing Board has never had so much attention.
Yes, the room was quite full. They brought in additional chairs, wheeled them in. I don't have a specific number. I think the Plumbing Board was aware that a lot of folks were going to come because you had to fill out an open form, request to speak, and there were at least, I'm going to say 15 individuals that spoke in favor of stormwater reuse. So happy that that pause is going to take place and they'll consider it further.
I'm glad you were there.
Thank you.
Very good, Nick.
John?
I don't have anything to report other than Monday evening, the Vickers telephoned me because of my previous experience with them, and so I went over and walked the land and took a look at it and understood it. And I'm very, I think we accomplished a positive movement here, so that, you know, a couple different things, staff and the consultants provided a record of it, which is important, so. And by the way, Nick, thank you for going to the meeting for the plumbers. Sure. But I hope they more than just posit that language is just unacceptable that they had for legislation.
Andrew Wynant?
Saturday went to the St. Paul Jazz Fest, and the St. Paul Waterworks was there. So spoke to the folks that were at their booth, and you all might be aware that the pipe from the Mississippi runs right along I. So as you're coming here, that's where the water coming out of the Mississippi ends up in Vandus Lakes and then into the treatment region.
So there's a pipe going in along 96 today. Is that related to any of that?
96, I think, is a gas pipeline.
Gas?
Yes, yes. But it's fascinating, even in this little book, about how, I think I mentioned the other day about horses and mules digging the ditch and preparing for the pipeline. So there were some forward-looking folks that decided that we want to take the water out of the Mississippi before it gets to the industrial area of Minneapolis to supply water.
Yes.
But I thought it was fascinating. So they had this tank there, and you could fill up your water bottles, and it was well visited, and a good example of how many of these water organizations are getting their word out. So I have the book.
Andrew Hanklin?
No report, Mr. President.
Andrew Robertson?
Not a report, just a reminder that I did give notice that I won't be able to attend that Wednesday Board of Managers meeting in July. A conflict, so.
All right. I have nothing, so motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn, Mr.
Second.
President.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Amazingly passed.
You should
All
have-
right, thank you all.
Sometimes I do. Oh.